Hi, everybody. So last week we went over the rhetorical appeals. You applied them looking at Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk. And so now we're going to be moving into our first essay, the rhetorical analysis. So you have your topic, you have your TED Talk, and now we're going to talk about how are we going to organize this paper? What is this going to look like? And you'll see for this week, there's an outline assignment, and these are extremely helpful in keeping yourself focused on what it is that you're going to be writing on.
It also makes sure that whatever TED Talk you selected, you have enough to say about it. So sometimes, occasionally, students like to choose the shortest TED Talk because they think that's going to make their lives easier. Does it, Dr. Thayer?
No,
it doesn't.
Usually, and I won't say all short ones are bad because a lot of short ones have all the rhetorical appeals. But if you're choosing a short one that doesn't have enough, back to the drawing board you go. You have to go back and find a better TED Talk. So just be careful with that. And I've had students in the past ask, is it okay if I switch TED Talks? At this point, absolutely. If you feel like you'll do a better job with a different talk, sure.
But if you start writing the outline and you don't have enough for each section, that would be a red flag to go ahead and switch it out before you even turn it in.
Absolutely.
And like we said, if you go to TED.com, there are tons of different talks. You can have them organized by topic. You can look at just Google list of interesting TED Talks. There's a list, I think somewhere has, maybe the New York Times has one of the top X amount of TED Talks every college student should watch. So there's tons of options out there. Pick whatever you like.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is actually, we're going to show you guys the outline template. Now this is on Canvas. So there's a template and then we also have a sample outline that we'll show you guys. So first up is the template. The first thing you're going to do is copy and paste the link to your TED Talk so that we know which TED Talk you've selected. And then tell us why you picked this one. We find that it's helpful for students to kind of articulate why they've chosen something so they make sure that they are connected to the assignment.
Absolutely. And in the past, a lot of students have said, I found it interesting because it was really funny. That's a rhetorical appeal. I found it interesting because they used a lot of visuals. That's a rhetorical appeal. They, engage the audience. That's a rhetorical appeal.
Yeah.
So a lot of the reasons why you like something can also think about how that could be considered a rhetorical appeal.
Yep. So if we keep going down, the next section is to really start thinking about how you're going to compose your essay. And as always, we usually start our essays with introductions. So in this essay, we have some opening ideas where you can kind of put with an interesting story, quotation, question, example from the TED Talk to let the reader know why the topic matters. This is inviting the reader to join you for this interesting intellectual conversation we're about to have in your essay. Right. You also want to include a brief summary of your TED Talk because your reader might not have seen your TED Talk. I mean, Dr. Thayer and I have seen lots of these, but I have not watched every TED Talk.
No, and I get new ones every single time we do this paper. And the key word here is brief summary. Do not go overboard because this essay is not a summary essay. So you're going to just give the overview of what is this TED Talk about? What are they arguing? What kind of reasons and evidence do they use? And then you're moving straight into your central claim, which is going to be the thesis for this essay.
And look at this highlighted part here. Your thesis statement is not about the content of the TED Talk. So let's say you were looking at one that a lot of students have used before in my class has been The Power of Introverts. Have you seen that one?
I have, like once or twice.
Oh, I apparently have a lot of introverts in my class. So what we're not looking for in a thesis statement is, the speaker talks about how introverts are important because of X, Y, Z. Wrong answer. The right answer is looking at how the speaker makes a compelling argument using the rhetorical appeals. This is the focus of the essay. It's not about the content of the talk. As we said, I think in the last week's video, the content of the talk is completely irrelevant.
Right.
It is about how the speaker uses the rhetorical appeals.
Right. And a lot of students ask, well, if I don't give a lot of background, how are you going to know what the talk is about? We don't need to know what the talk is about. We need to know how the rhetorical appeals are being used. So it's a refocusing of what you're typically used to writing. So that's why we like to start with this essay because it kind of makes you have to rethink how you typically write.
Yeah. This is an example of where you're using the lens. You're looking at the TED Talk through the lens of the rhetorical appeals. And you can do this with also any lit majors out there. This is
there's all you do. There's so many. Just all of them are lit majors.
The two of you raise your hands. But this is what you do. You look at theory and then you apply it to a text. So it's you look through the lens of something. Anyways, It's fun.
Moving on.
Moving on. So for your body paragraphs, what you're looking at are reasons why the TED Talk is an effective argument using the rhetorical appeals.
Exactly. So let's go to Sirkin Robinson. We just talked about his for quite a bit last week. If we're talking about him making a compelling argument, one of you talked about his use of humor. So the first reason could be Sirkin Robinson uses humor throughout his TED Talk, right? That is the first part that kind of shows, all right, we're not going to be talking about what he's saying. We're talking about how he makes an effective talk.
Yeah. Or you could talk about his credibility, right?
Mhm.
You could have a topic sentence was one of the ways that, I mean, his name is Sir Ken Robinson, right? Sir Ken Robinson demonstrates his credibility is by including his title or the way he's dressed or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever it is you want to focus on in that section. And then you have to have illustrations, which means the evidence you use to support your point. This should be specific quotations from the talk.
Right.
So if we're going to say he uses humor, then you need to find quotes. Now, I'm going to show you guys a little trick. When you look at TED Talks, should we show them the transcript? Okay. When you guys look at TED Talks on TED.com, let me go ahead and pull one up. This was an impromptu thing I decided to do. Let's look at.
But it's really helpful.
It really is. What's it called?
TED.com.
Schools. No.
Oh.
Kill creativity. Yeah, thank you. I know that. I meant his TED. Okay, so if you go to TED.com, which is where you presumably found your TED Talk, and you look here, if I play Sir Ken Robinson's talk, let me go ahead and make that big and hit play, what you'll notice is there's this button here that says transcript. Oh, I don't want to this actually. If you click where it says transcript, it gives you the text of the TED Talk. So at this point, when you're, you know, looking for quotes and things like that, you can pull them directly from here.
Right. It makes it so much easier. So you're not having to go back and like type it word for word, just copy, paste it over into your essay whenever you're bringing in your illustration part.
It's really convenient. I also find that for me, sometimes it helps me to analyze something a little bit deeper to like read it.
Yes.
Instead of watching a video. So I watch it a couple times and then I, you know, read the transcript. So a lot of students find that to be extremely helpful.
Absolutely.
And basically that's what you're going to do for the rest of the outline.
Yes. So you're going to come up with all of the different reasons why you think your TED Talk made an effective argument. So going back to that outline.
Now I'm going to pull up a sample one because one of the things you're going to notice is that there are 4 body paragraphs.
Yes.
But wait, there's only 3 rhetorical appeals. What do I do? Help me.
So you don't have to have an ethos, pathos, and logos paragraph. You can have, say, there's humor, but then also sadness. You could do 1 paragraph about humor and 1 paragraph about sadness. So you actually have 2 pathos paragraphs. Or if you have a TED Talk that talks a lot about research, but then also brings in other kind of experts onto the stage, for example, you could have 2 different paragraphs about logos, right? If the speaker does a lot of things to connect, right? So talks about his or her personal life, but then also uses like we or call and response with the audience. That's 2 different things. Those could be 2 different paragraphs. So you do not have to have just 1 ethos, 1 pathos, 1 logos. You can have multiple ethos, multiple pathos, or multiple logos. And I have had experience with students that say, well, mine is mainly pathos. And I'm like, okay, well, is it an effective argument? And they say, yeah. I said, okay, if you can come up with 4 different ways that they are appealing to pathos, then that could work. So this is not a you know, one size fits all where every single student is going to write an ethos, a pathos, a logos paragraph, and then an extra one. Okay. You really need to look at your talk to see what is really effective. So for Ken Robinson, we can talk about humor, personal stories. What else could we talk about?
Well, he tells, I don't know, he kind of makes you feel shocked and outraged, I think, about schools, right? I mean, I think the overall pathos of the talk is to walk away feeling upset. And he tells that story about the girl who's the dancer at the end.
Lillian.
Yeah.
Jillian.
Yeah.
Y'all know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
But so that could be another example of how he makes an effective talk, right? Yeah. You could also bring in, you know, he does cite different sources or he incorporates research. It's not a lot, but he does it every once in a while, right? So you could incorporate that. So anyway, you want to look at your talk and think about what are the 4 biggest ways that they make an appealing argument.
Yep.
Those will be your paragraphs.
So, for example, in this sample outline, which is also on Canvas and something you can look at, now you can't use this TED Talk.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Can't use Jane McGonigal.
McGonagall. So, opening ideas. Her talk is about gaming being a waste of time, right, and money, like video games. So she talks about that. Here's the claim. Her claim is that games improve one's mental health and allows people to live longer. So she's kind of taking a stance against these misconceptions about video games. Here's the claim. By invoking hope. So what is that? What rhetorical appeal is that?
Oh, pathos.
Wake up. Displaying her credentials. What's
Ethos.
that? Engaging the audience.
Ethos.
Providing statistics.
Logos.
So you see, and the student didn't even use, way to go, you aced it. The student didn't even use those words, right? You don't even have to use the language. McGonagall performed an incredibly effective speech that attracts and compels her viewers to question the benefits of gaming in our society. So, thesis statement, notice it's not about gaming, right? It's not like she says this about gaming. She points out that gaming increases your cerebral cortex. I don't know.
Gaming is so you're not going to have a thesis that's like gaming is really helpful to our society
because of A, B, and C.
Right. No, that your focus should be on the TED Talk, not the content of the talk. And you're going to hear this repeatedly throughout these videos.
Yep. So here's the first reason. McGonagall uses the emotion of hope, right? Again, what is that?
That's pathos.
To carry her performance, which causes her claim to be more effective to the viewer. So again, the focus of the points is on the effectiveness of the argument. For the illustrations or the examples, the student includes specific quotation, right? She gives experience with depression and suicidal thoughts, says, here's the quote. And then the explanation. So there's a question here in the outline to help you think about an explanation. Now, PI, which we've kind of were talking about as we're doing this, is an organizational strategy for body paragraphs. You want to tell us about PI?
So PI is point, illustrate, explain. And every single outline that you do for this class will be organized into that. So you might have seen in the very beginning, there was a picture of a very pretty pie that we did not bake. We just found a pretty picture.
On the internet.
Yeah. But what you can see is that is a way of organizing your body paragraphs to make sure you have everything you need when it comes to academic writing. PI is only used for body paragraphs. It's not an introduction and it's not a conclusion. Those are their own special things. Yes. So whenever you're building these outlines, ideally what you do, once you create the outline, the paper really writes itself. So when you start getting into the drafting of it, which we'll talk about in a later video, you're going to copy and paste what you wrote for your point, your illustrate and explain, and you're going to have the blueprint of a really good paragraph, making sure it has all 3 of those things.
Yeah.
Now, point and explanation should be in your own words, completely in your own words. The only place that you're bringing in the TED Talk is in the illustration. That's it. You're just using the illustration to illustrate the point you're trying to make. And then the explanation is kind of the so what, right? All right. So why does she use hope? How does that, help make the argument more compelling? How does that make her, connect with her audience? And so for this example, we say hope is one of the strongest emotions that can relate person to person. By providing hope throughout her talk, McGonagall relates herself to everyone who has feelings of depression or sadness, which is a large spectrum of people. This then allows her message to stick more with the viewers, giving them hope that they too can overcome their sadness. So in that explanation, you really want to think about how does that have an effect on the audience? And you're going to see that as that last question. What effect does it have on the audience, right? So why does Sir Ken Robinson use humor all the time? How does that affect his audience? I don't know. If we're talking about the state of education, that can be a really down, depressing subject, right? So using humor is a way of maybe getting our guards down and being a little bit more open and receptive to what he's saying. So for each body paragraph, you're going to have your point, you're going to have your illustration, and then you're going to have your explanation. And you're going to do that for each body paragraph.
Now I will say most students have point down. You might have heard this as like a topic sentence.
Yeah.
Right. I like to use point because I think it's allows for more than one. You can have more than one sentence and a point.
Yes.
Right. Illustrate. A lot of students bring in quotes. what I find most students struggle with is the explanation piece. And you will notice on this outline, like that's the largest part of that. And that's usually what students skim over, because a lot of times students expect the reader to make these connections, but you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and they can't. They don't have the skill that you are learning, right? So they are not understanding ethos, pathos, and logos like you are. So you want to think about, how is each rhetorical appeal really engaging the audience, right?
And you also don't want to give the reader the chance to interpret it in a different way than you, right? I mean, are there texts that have quotes in it that people interpret in different ways?
Absolutely.
Again, lit majors. That's all you find about. But even if you look at texts like the Bible, right? Some people read it and think it means this, and other people read a quote and think it means this.
Right.
So this way, it makes sure that you're in charge of your essay and you're in control of your writing, and make sure that the reader is interpreting things the way you want him or her to interpret.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that's why it's important. So you are going to do this again with another body paragraph,
Right.
and another body paragraph,
Yes.
and a final body paragraph.
Yes.
So you will have 4 body paragraphs. Now there's a conclusion section on here. We'll talk more about conclusion in future weeks. So you don't.
Well, work on this part.
Yeah.
Put your ideas on here, but we are going to refine it. Okay. So answer the questions, what makes it so
Start
successful?
thinking.
What do you wish the author would have included? What do you think the viewers got out of it? In what ways is it compelling? So just kind of put your ideas down there, but think of it more as a brainstorm, because we
Right.
are going to give you a little bit more guidance in the next video or the one after that regarding conclusion. So stay tuned for that.
Yes. All right. So that is outline.
Yes.
I think that was pretty much it for this week, isn't it?
Yes. I have students ask a few times that, do I have to complete all 4 body paragraphs for my outline to receive credit? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It is not a choose your top 2 or 3.
I only have 2 paragraphs.
All 4. If you can't come up with 4, again, go back to another TED Talk, okay? Or talk to us about it. Send us an email before it's due. But, let's see if we can make it work before you just throw it out.
Yeah. All right, guys. So make sure you do work on your outlines this week. Next week we'll be working on, let me see my sheet, building our body paragraphs and writing rough drafts, talking about conclusions. So we'll have more to come next week. Hope you guys have a good one. Thanks.
Bye.